high in the jagged peaks of a frozen world where snow never melted and the wind sang through ice caves like a morning spirit. A lone human man trudged forward beneath a sky lit by 3 pale moons. His name was Joran, a scavenger from Earth who had crash-landed weeks ago on this distant planet called Vera, a place not on any map, hidden behind asteroid belts and gravity storms that chewed up ships like old bones. He wore layers of torn thermal gear, his breath puffing in thick clouds as he dragged a makeshift sled loaded with broken parts. Anything he could salvage from his wrecked vessel to trade or repair. The cold gnawed at him, relentless, turning his fingers stiff and his thoughts slow. But worse than the cold was the silence. The endless, crushing quiet of a dead mountain range where no bird flew, no animal stirred, only the whisper of snowflakes falling like secrets. Joran had seen strange things since crashing. Lights dancing in the sky like living auroras, footprints too large and 3-toed pressed into fresh powder, and once, a shadow moving across a cliff face too fast for anything natural. Still, he kept walking. Hope wasn't strong, but it wasn't dead yet. Then, just as the northern winds began to howl louder, warning of an approaching blizzard, he saw it. A cave mouth half buried in snow, glowing faintly from within with a soft blue light. Not fire, not electricity, something else, something alive. He hesitated. Every instinct screamed danger, but his body was failing. Frostbite had claimed 2 toes. Hunger had hollowed his stomach into a knot of pain. If he didn't find shelter soon, he wouldn't wake up tomorrow. Staggering toward the cave, Joran pushed through a curtain of hanging icicles that shattered like glass. Inside, the air was warm, unnaturally so, and filled with the scent of crushed mint and something floral, like frost bloom petals. The walls pulsed gently with bioluminescent veins, shifting colors like a heartbeat. And there, curled on a bed of woven moss and furs, were 3 small creatures. At first glance, they looked almost human, small, fragile, with limbs too long for their bodies. But their skin shimmered green like wet leaves under moonlight, and their hair was pure white, fine as spider silk. They lay motionless, eyes closed, breathing shallow. One whimpered in its sleep, a tiny sound that cut through Joran like a knife. Then he saw her. She stood from a low stone chair, rising like smoke from embers, tall and graceful, her green skin glowing faintly in the cave's light. Her white hair flowed down her back like a waterfall frozen mid-fall, and her eyes, large, almond-shaped, silver like liquid mercury, locked onto his with a mixture of desperation and pride. She wore a robe made of what looked like woven frost, shimmering and weightless, clinging to her slender frame. She didn't speak at first, just stared. Then, in perfect English, though with a melody to it, like words sung underwater, she said, "My children haven't eaten for days. Feed them, and I will be yours forever." Joran froze, not because of the offer, though that alone would have stunned any sane man, but because of the raw emotion behind it. This wasn't seduction. It wasn't manipulation. It was surrender, a mother's last plea. He looked at the children again. Their bellies were sunken, their lips cracked. One had a thin line of frost forming on its eyelashes, as if even its tears were freezing. His chest tightened. He'd come here looking for survival. Now he was being asked to give it. "I don't have food," he said hoarsely, voice cracking from disuse. "I've been eating metal shavings and snow." The alien woman stepped closer. Up close, she was breathtaking, not just beautiful but other. Her presence hummed in the air, like standing near a live wire. "You have rations. In your pack. Protein bars. Water purifier." Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. "I can smell them. Your kind stores sustenance. Give it to them. Just a little. Enough to wake them." Joran hesitated. Those rations were all he had. Without them, he might not make it off the mountain. But then the smallest child let out a weak cry, a sound so pitiful it echoed in the cave like a dying star. Joran unzipped his pack with numb fingers and pulled out a single protein bar. Chocolate flavor, nearly expired, wrapper crinkled and stained. He held it out. The woman didn't take it. Instead, she knelt beside the youngest child and gently pried open its tiny mouth. With infinite care, she broke off a crumb and placed it on the creature's tongue. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the child swallowed. Its eyelids fluttered. A soft sigh escaped its lips. The other two stirred. The woman turned back to Joran, her silver eyes glistening. Not with tears, but with something deeper. Gratitude, relief, and something darker, too. Fear. "They are Verani," she said. My people do not eat as yours do. We absorb nutrients from light, from the energy of the world. But the great storm, the black winter, has blocked the sky for weeks. No sun, no starlight, only darkness. Our bodies weaken. The young cannot survive without physical nourishment. Joran nodded slowly, still crouched, his legs aching. So you need human food? For now, until the storm passes. But it is not enough. What you gave was a drop in a dry well. She looked at him, really looked. You are injured, starving. Yet you gave without hesitation. Why? Because I have a nephew back on Earth, Joran said quietly. Same age as your little one. If he were starving, I'd want someone to help him, even if they hated humans. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. A sound like wind chimes in a thaw. You are odd, human. Soft, weak, and yet strong in ways I do not understand. Before he could respond, a deep rumble shook the mountain. Snow tumbled from the cave ceiling. Outside, the wind screamed like a wounded beast. The woman's expression darkened. They come. Who? Joran asked, scrambling to his feet. The Scar. Hunters. They serve the Shadow Council. They believe my children are abominations, half-breeds, born of a forbidden union between a Virani priestess and a human explorer decades ago. My mate died protecting us. Now they hunt the last of our bloodline. Joran's mind spun. Half-alien children, forbidden unions? It sounded like a myth, but the fear in her eyes was real. So was the danger. He grabbed his salvaged plasma torch, the only weapon he had, and clicked it on. It sputtered weakly, blue flame flickering. How many are coming? Dozens. Armed with sonic lances. They move like ghosts through the snow. We can't fight them, Joran said. We need to run. There is no running. This cave is the only warm place for miles. If we leave, the children will freeze before dawn. Joran cursed under his breath. He wasn't a hero. He was a mechanic, a loner, a guy who fixed engines and avoided relationships. He didn't sign up for intergalactic family drama. But those kids, they looked at him now with wide, hopeful eyes, already nibbling on another crumb of protein bar. The middle one, bold and curious, reached out a tiny green hand and touched his boot, then giggled, a sound like tiny bells. The woman watched him. Feed them again, and I will be yours forever. He groaned. Can we not talk about that right now? People are trying to kill us. She tilted her head. It is not a joke, human. In my culture, such a vow binds soul to soul. I would follow you through fire and void, protect you with my life, love you until the stars burn out. Joran blinked. Okay, that's intense. And also very distracting when death is coming. Another tremor. Closer this time. Then silence. Too silent. They're here, she whispered. They cloak their steps. Use the wind to mask their approach. Joran moved to the cave entrance, peering out. Nothing but swirling snow. Then a flicker. A shadow, tall and angular, darting between ice pillars. Another to the left. And another above, scaling the cliff like a spider. His pulse hammered. He turned back. The woman was gathering the children, wrapping them in furs, humming a low, melodic tune that seemed to calm them. The oldest, one with sharp, intelligent eyes, whispered something in her ear. She nodded. They say you are brave, she told Joran, for giving food when you had none. Brave? I'm terrified, he admitted. But I'm also really mad. Nobody threatens kids. Not on my watch. Even if they're space kids with glowy skin. She smiled then. A true smile, radiant as sunrise on snow. Then let us show them what a furious human looks like. Joran rigged the plasma torch to a cracked power cell from his ship, jury-rigging a crude detonator. When they get close, I'll blow the ice shelf above. Bury them under 50 tons of snow. It may not be enough, she said. The Scar are resilient. They can survive burial. They breathe ice. Well, then we improvise, Joran snapped. Got any magic powers? Laser eyes? Telekinesis? She raised a hand. The air shimmered. A sphere of pale green light formed above her palm, pulsing like a heart. I am a light weaver. I bend solar energy. But without sunlight, my strength is limited. I can shield, dazzle, not destroy. Dazzle works, Joran said. Just blind them long enough for me to hit the switch. They took positions. Joran crouched by the detonator, fingers on the trigger. The woman stood at the front, children behind her, wrapped in moss and humming softly. The wind died. The world held its breath. Then movement. Figures emerged from the storm, tall and gaunt, clad in black armor that absorbed light. Their faces were hidden behind masks of polished obsidian, shaped like skulls. Each carried a long staff that hummed with violet energy. They moved in silence, surrounding the cave. A leader stepped forward, raising his staff. A voice, metallic and cold, echoed through the air. "Priestess Zinra, you have defied the council for the last time. Surrender the hybrids, or die with them." Zinra, that was her name, suited her. Strong, ancient, like a word from a forgotten prayer. "I am no longer a priestess," she called back. "I am a mother, and these are my children. You will not take them." The Scar leader laughed, a grating sound. "Sentiment, the weakness of mixed blood. Kill them all." In a flash, the hunters lunged. Joran hit the detonator. The explosion wasn't loud. It was deep, a bass note that vibrated through bone. The ice shelf above cracked, groaned, and collapsed in a thunderous avalanche, burying 3 of the attackers instantly. Snow and debris filled the air. Chaos erupted. The remaining Scar scattered, some caught in the slide, others firing their sonic lances. Beams of violet light sliced through the snow, striking the cave entrance and sending shards of ice flying. Zinra raised her hands. The green sphere expanded into a dome, shielding the children just as a blast hit. The force knocked her back, but the barrier held. She gasped, sweat beading on her green forehead. "I cannot maintain this long." Joran grabbed a piece of sharpened metal from his pack, a shard of hull plating, and charged. He wasn't a warrior, but he was angry. Angry at the universe for stranding him here. Angry at these skull-faced freaks for threatening innocent kids. He tackled one Scar from behind, driving the metal shard into the joint of its armor. There was a hiss, a spurt of dark fluid, and the creature shrieked, collapsing. Another swung its staff. Joran ducked, rolled, came up swinging a rock he'd picked up, cracked against the mask, staggering the attacker. Zinra, still shielding the children, flung a pulse of light. It struck another Scar, blinding it. The creature clawed at its mask, screaming as steam rose from its face. 2 more closed in. Joran grabbed a fallen sonic lance. Too heavy, too alien. But he aimed it wildly and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. He cursed, threw it aside, and kicked snow into the next attacker's visor, momentarily blinding it. Then a miracle. One of the children, the boldest one, the one who had touched Joran's boot, wriggled free of the furs and stepped forward. "No!" Zinra cried, but the child raised its tiny hands. From its palms burst a beam of pure, golden light, not strong but bright, like a newborn sun. It struck the nearest Scar, and the creature screamed, its armor cracking, its body convulsing as if burned from within. Joran stared. Did the kid just zap him? Zinra looked stunned. That power, it shouldn't be possible. The children inherited no light weaving. It was suppressed by the council's curse. But the child wasn't done. It wobbled, clearly exhausted, but kept the beam steady. The Scar fell, twitching. The remaining attackers hesitated. Fear rippled through them. This was not supposed to happen. Hybrids weren't supposed to have power. The leader snarled. "Fall back. Regroup. This is not over, Zinra." With that, the surviving Scar turned and vanished into the storm, their forms dissolving into the snow like smoke. Silence returned. The wind softened. The cave glowed gently. Joran collapsed onto the snow, panting. "Well, that sucked." Zinra rushed to the child, scooping it up. "You foolish, brave thing," she whispered, kissing its forehead. "You could have died." The child giggled. "Glowed," it said proudly. Joran laughed. A real, full laugh that hurt his ribs but felt good. "Yeah, you glowed real nice." Zinra looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the cave's light. "You fought for us, when you could have run, when you had nothing." "I told you," Joran said, brushing snow from his face. "I don't like bullies." She stepped closer, placing a hand on his cheek. Her touch was cool, soothing. "You are more than you seem, Joran of Earth." He blinked. "You know my name? You spoke it in your sleep. Many times. Along with, 'Don't let the engine fail.' Very dramatic." He groaned. "Great. I monologue in my dreams." She smiled. Then, slowly, she lowered her forehead to touch his, a gesture that felt ancient, sacred. You fed my children. You defended them. You stand in the storm for strangers. So I say again, feed them, and I will be yours forever. Joran sighed. Look, Zinra, you're amazing. You're beautiful, powerful, probably immortal, and your kids are weirdly adorable. But I'm just a guy who fixes things. I don't do forever. I don't even do breakfast plans. And yet, she said softly, you gave your last food to a child not of your kind. He had no answer. The children crawled over, sniffing the air. The youngest pointed at his pack. Food, Joran groaned. Oh, come on. I only have 2 bars left. The middle one tugged his sleeve. Please, how do you even know that word? He muttered. Zinra laughed. They learn fast, especially when motivated by chocolate. Grumbling, Joran pulled out another protein bar, broke it into 3 pieces, watched as the children devoured it like starving raccoons. The oldest licked the wrapper clean. You're going to bankrupt me, he said. And yet you smile, she observed. He did. He couldn't help it. There was something deeply satisfying about seeing those little green faces light up, like he'd done something right for once. Night fell. The storm passed. The 3 moons hung low, casting long shadows. Joran sat by the cave entrance, scanning the horizon. No movement. For now they were safe. Zinra joined him, handing him a cup of steaming liquid that smelled like pine and honey. What is this? He asked. Verani tea. Restores energy. Also tastes like hope. He sipped. It was delicious. You people are weirdly poetic. We see the world differently. Light is language. Silence is song. Survival is art. He nodded slowly. I think I like that. She studied him. You carry sadness. I see it in your eyes. Like a wound that never healed. He looked away. Lost someone. A long time ago. Doesn't matter now. It matters, she said gently. Pain shapes us, but it does not have to define us. He didn't answer, just stared at the stars. Days passed. Joran repaired parts of his ship using materials Zinra showed him, crystalline ores that conducted energy, metals that grew stronger in cold. She taught him to listen to the mountain, to feel the pulse of the planet beneath the ice. The children followed him everywhere, calling him Uncle Jor, mimicking his walk, stealing his tools, and once, gluing his boots together with alien sap. He pretended to be angry. He wasn't. One evening, as they sat around a small bioluminescent fire, the oldest child, now named Kiva by Zinra, asked, Will you stay? Joran hesitated. I don't know. My ship. When it's fixed. You could fix other things, Zinra said softly. Like loneliness. He looked at her. Really looked. The way her hair caught the firelight. The way she hummed when the children slept. The way she fought like a storm for her family. I don't belong here, he said. Where do you belong? She asked. He had no answer. Then, one morning, the impossible happened. The clouds broke. After weeks of endless night, a single ray of sunlight pierced the sky, golden and warm, striking the highest peak. The mountain shivered. The bioluminescent veins in the cave flared brighter. Zinra ran outside, arms raised, face turned upward. Tears streamed down her green cheeks. The light returns, she whispered. The black winter ends. The children danced in the snow, laughing, their skin drinking in the sun. Joran watched, stunned. As the sunlight touched them, their green skin shimmered, becoming translucent in places, revealing delicate patterns of light flowing beneath, like circuits made of starlight. They're feeding, Zinra said, joy in her voice. They can sustain themselves now. Joran felt a strange pang. Relief, yes, but also loss. They didn't need him anymore. That night, he finished repairing his ship's comms array. He could call for rescue. Leave this frozen world. Go home. But as he stood in the cave, looking at the children asleep in their moss bed, at Zinra singing a soft lullaby in a language older than Earth, he realized something. Home wasn't a place. It was a feeling. And it was right here. Outside, the wind blew gentle now. The stars sparkled. Somewhere, a new chapter waited. Not with fanfare, but with quiet courage, with chocolate-stained fingers and green-skinned laughter, with a promise whispered in snow and sealed in light. He hadn't fed them to earn love. He had loved them, and in doing so had finally been fed himself. The days that followed the breaking of the black winter unfolded like a dream Joran never wanted to wake from. The sun, long absent, climbed higher each morning, painting the snowfields in gold and rose, turning the icy peaks into glittering crowns. The mountain, once a prison of silence and cold, now hummed with life. Tiny frost blossoms pushed through the snow, their petals opening like hands to the sky, and high above, winged shapes, Varani scouts, Zinra told him, circled on thermal winds, signaling the return of balance. Joran didn't call for rescue. Instead, he dismantled the comms array, piece by quiet piece, and stored it deep in the cave, covered with furs. He didn't need it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Zinra noticed, of course. She always noticed. Her silver eyes missed nothing. But she said nothing. Only smiled one morning when she found the last coil of antenna buried beneath his sleeping mat, and placed a warm cup of pine honey tea beside him without a word. The children, now strong and radiant with returned energy, treated Joran like a hero, a father, a clown, and a chew toy, all at once. Kiva, the eldest, shadowed him as he worked, asking endless questions about Earth machines, gravity drives, and why humans liked something called pizza so much. Little Mira, the middle child, had developed a habit of sneaking into his bedroll at night, curling up beside him like a small green cat, whispering secrets in half-learned English. "Uncle Jor, I dreamed we flew. Can you fix wings?" And tiny Leo, the youngest, still too shy to speak much, would just stare at him with wide, starlit eyes, then burst into giggles whenever Joran made a silly face. He taught them things: how to build simple circuits from scrap metal, how to whistle, a skill they mastered instantly and used to annoy their mother, and how to play a game he called rock, paper, scissors, which devolved into chaos when Mira insisted light beam should be an option. In return, they taught him. They showed him how to listen to the mountain's song, a low, harmonic vibration that pulsed through the stone, a language older than words. They taught him to walk without sound, placing feet like falling leaves, a skill vital in Scar territory. And Zinra, slowly, patiently, began teaching him the basics of light weaving. Not to wield power, but to feel it, to understand the flow of energy around all living things. "It is not magic," she explained one evening as they sat outside the cave, watching the auroras dance across the sky. "It is harmony, like tuning an engine. You do not force it. You align with it." Joran frowned, trying to summon even a flicker in his palm like she did. Nothing happened. "I think my soul's out of tune." She laughed, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Your soul sings louder than you know." And then, one soft night under a sky drowned in stars, something shifted. They were sitting by the glowing fire pit, the children asleep behind them, wrapped in moss furs and murmuring in their dreams. The air was still. The world felt hushed, reverent. Joran stirred the flames with a stick, watching sparks rise like tiny suns. "You could have left," Zinra said quietly. "Your ship is almost whole. You could have called your people. Gone home." He poked the fire. "This feels like home." She turned to him, her silver eyes reflecting the light. "You gave us food when you had none. You fought when you could run. You stayed when you could leave. Why?" He looked at her, really looked, at the way her white hair caught the firelight like spun moonlight, at the gentle curve of her lips, at the strength in her gaze, softened now with something tender, something new. "Because," he said, voice rough, "when I was alone on that mountain, freezing, starving, thinking I was going to die, I kept dreaming of warmth, of someone waiting, someone who'd care if I didn't come back." He paused. "I didn't believe such a person existed. Then I met you." She didn't speak, just reached for his hand, her cool fingers intertwining with his cracked, calloused ones. "And the children?" she asked softly. "They're mine now," he said. "Not by blood, but by choice. By every stupid chocolate bar I've shared. Every time I've carried Leo on my shoulders. Every time Kiva calls me Dad Jor, when she thinks I'm not listening." A tear slipped down her green cheek. Not from sadness, from wonder. "In Varani law," she whispered, "when a protector gives sustenance and shelter to orphans not of their kind, and defends them in battle, they are granted the title of Kethvan, guardian of the bloodline. It is sacred, unbreakable." Joran swallowed. "So, what does that make me?" She leaned forward, her breath cool against his skin. "Family." Then, gently, she kissed him. It wasn't like earth kisses, fiery, urgent, desperate. This was slow, deep, like roots growing into soil. Emerging. Promise. Her lips were cool, but the emotion behind it burned hotter than any plasma torch. When she pulled away, the world seemed brighter, clearer, as if a veil had lifted. Joran exhaled shakily. Well, that changes things. She smirked. Only if you let it. Oh, I'm letting it, he said, pulling her closer. But fair warning, I snore. I talk in my sleep. And I eat weird amounts of peanut butter when stressed. She laughed, the sound echoing off the cliffs. Good. I will steal it and hide it to keep you humble. From that night on, something settled between them. Not just love, but belonging. Joran stopped counting the days until escape. Instead, he counted moments. Myra's first full sentence, Uncle Jor, you stink after work. Leo's first steps under sunlight, Kiva's first attempt at building a circuit, which exploded, covering them all in soot, but she declared it successful failure. Zinra too changed. The weight of exile, of grief, of constant fear, slowly lifted. She sang more, laughed freely. One afternoon, Joran caught her dancing barefoot in the snow, spinning with arms wide, laughing as the children chased her, their laughter ringing like bells. He stood frozen, heart swelling. He'd never seen anything so beautiful. Still, danger lingered. One morning, while gathering ice crystals for water purification, Joran found footprints. Three-toed, deep, fresh. Scar. Close. He returned to the cave quickly, quietly. Zinra saw the look in his eyes and immediately gathered the children, sealing the cave entrance with a woven barrier of light and frost. They won't stop, she said. The council sees our survival as defiance. They will send stronger hunters. Machines. War drone swarms. Joran clenched his fists. Then we don't wait. We fight. But not here. We take the fight to them. Zinra stared. You? Plan strategy? I've been fixing broken things my whole life, he said. Now I'm going to break something on purpose. Over the next week, they prepared. Joran used salvaged parts from his ship and ancient Verani tech Zinra uncovered from a hidden vault beneath the mountain to build traps. Sonic disruptors disguised as ice formations, electromagnetic pulses hidden in rock crevices, and a network of reflective panels designed to focus sunlight into a blinding beam, amplifying Zinra's light weaving. The children helped too. Kiva, brilliant with systems, mapped scar patrol patterns. Mira, nimble and silent, planted decoys. Even Leo, though too young to fight, learned to mimic animal calls to distract enemies. And Zinra? She trained. Under the returning sun, she practiced weaving light into weapons. Lances of pure energy, shields that could deflect sonic blasts, even short bursts of flight by riding solar currents. Joran watched in awe as she soared above the peaks, her white hair streaming behind her like a banner. You're incredible, he told her one evening as she landed gracefully beside him. She smiled, breathless. I am becoming what I was meant to be. Not just a priestess, not just a fugitive, a leader, and a mom, he added, and a woman loved by a stubborn human mechanic, she said, kissing him lightly. The final test came on the eve of the spring equinox, the day the twin suns of Vera aligned, flooding the northern mountains with energy. The Scar attacked at dawn. Not in silence this time, but with fury, dozens descending on hover sleds, armed with pulse rifles and cloaking fields, led by a towering commander clad in black armor etched with runes of the Shadow Council. They came expecting weakness. They found fire. Joran triggered the first trap, a buried charge that sent a wave of superheated steam bursting from the snow, disabling 3 sleds. Before the Scar could regroup, Zinra unleashed a beam of concentrated sunlight, amplified by Joran's reflectors, blinding half the force. Kiva activated the EMP grid, shutting down their comms and navigation. Then the real battle began. Joran, armed with a modified plasma torch and a suit lined with stolen Scar insulation, moved like a ghost through the battlefield, sabotaging weapons, tripping drones, using his knowledge of machinery to turn their own tech against them. Mira darted through the snow, planting microcharges that detonated beneath enemy feet. Leo, hidden in a crevice, mimicked the cry of the ice wolf, drawing attackers into ambushes. Zinra fought like a storm given form, dodging blasts, weaving shields, striking with lances of light. When the commander lunged at her with a vibro blade, Joran intercepted, tackling him with a reinforced snowboard he'd rigged with spikes. They crashed into a drift, grappling in the powder. You don't belong here, human, the commander growled. No, Joran panted. I belong with them. With a final shove, he knocked the blade aside and slammed a device onto the commander's chest. A feedback loop Joran had built from scavenged parts. It flared blue, and the commander's armor overloaded, locking him in place. Above, Zinra hovered, bathed in golden light. She raised her hands. And the mountain answered. Cracks split the glacier behind the scar forces. Ice groaned. Then, with a roar, an avalanche surged down, not random, but guided, shaped by her will, burying the remaining troops without killing them. Captured, not slaughtered. Silence fell. The sun climbed higher. Zinra descended slowly, landing beside Joran. Her breath came fast, her skin glowing faintly. She looked at him, eyes bright. "We won," she whispered. He grinned, covered in snow and soot. "Told you I fixed things." She laughed, then pulled him into a fierce embrace. Behind them, the children came running, shouting, jumping into the hug, a tangle of limbs and joy. That night, a celebration lit the mountain. Virani survivors emerged from hiding. Families, elders, warriors, who had watched the battle from afar. They brought gifts. Luminous fruit, warm robes, songs passed down for generations. They honored Zinra as the reborn Lightbringer. And they welcomed Joran, not as an outsider, but as Kethvon, guardian of the bloodline, the human who had fed the hungry, defended the weak, and loved without condition. An elder, her skin pale green with age, placed a circlet of frost crystal on Zinra's brow. Then she turned to Joran. "In our oldest tale," she said, voice like wind over ice, "it is written that when the stars forget their song, a wanderer from beyond the void shall come, bearing warmth in his hands and courage in his heart. He will not be of us, but he will choose us, and in choosing, he will heal the rift." She placed a smaller band around Joran's wrist, crafted from ship metal and Virani crystal. "Wear this, not as a mark of conquest, but of union." Joran touched it, stunned. Zinra squeezed his hand. As the fire burned high and the auroras danced above, Joran stood with his family. Green-skinned, white-haired, loud, chaotic, magical. And realized he wasn't stranded anymore. He was found. And somewhere, in the quiet between heartbeats, he whispered a promise to the universe. "I'm staying." Under the twin suns of Vera, on a ridge where snow bloomed with frost flowers, Joran and Zinra were married in the ancient way. Hands bound with woven light, vows spoken not in words, but in shared silence that echoed through the mountain's song. The children danced around them, scattering petals that glowed like stars. Kiva carried the flame of renewal, Mira sang the harmony of two worlds, and little Leo placed a single earth pebble at their feet, a gift from Joran's old life. There were no priests, only the wind and the watching elders who nodded in approval. Zinra wore a robe spun from sunlight and memory. Joran wore his repaired flight jacket, now lined with Virani weave. They exchanged tokens. He gave her a music box from Earth that played a lullaby. She gave him a crystal that pulsed with her heartbeat, even when apart. That night, they stood together atop the peak, looking out over a world reborn. No grand palace, no fanfare. Just a warm cave, a crackling bioluminescent fire, and the sound of 3 children snoring in their moss beds. Joran learned to cook nutrient paste with chocolate chips, calling it space brownies, which the kids adored and Zinra pretended to hate. She always licked the spoon. Mornings began with tangled hair, sleepy giggles, and Leo climbing onto his chest like a tiny conqueror. He taught them Earth songs. She taught him Virani chants that made the walls shimmer. They rebuilt the northern outpost together, Joran wiring solar collectors, Zinra weaving light barriers for protection. Kiva helped design a school for hybrid children. Mira started a garden of glowing plants. Joran still grumbled about frozen toes and alien tea, but every night, without fail, he tucked the children in, kissed Zinra's forehead, and whispered, "Best day ever." Birthdays were celebrated with double rations of protein bars and sky lanterns made of ice. When storms came, they huddled close, telling stories. His of Earth cities under rain, hers of star temples lost to time. They argued sometimes, over chores, over discipline, over whether sonic drills should be used as toothbrushes. Myra's idea, thankfully vetoed. But every disagreement ended the same, with laughter, or a quiet touch, or Zinra pressing her forehead to his in silent apology. Years slipped by like falling snow, gentle, constant, beautiful. The scars on Joran's hands faded. New lines formed around his eyes from smiling. Zinra's power grew, but so did her softness, her joy. The galaxy still turned. Empires rose and fell, but on that snowy mountain, time moved differently.